The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and looked expensive. Embossed on the front were the words, Thorn and Veil, Attorneys at Law. Just beneath that, in elegant black script, was my name, Miss Ireina Reyes. I held it for a moment before opening it. I already knew what it was. No one had to tell me. Ever since Grandpa passed, I'd felt something shift, like an old door had finally swung open. At breakfast, my mother had said it flatly, like it was just another item on her to-do list. Grayson's will is being read next week. It's a formality, but Selena's the main beneficiary. Don't bother dressing up for disappointment. I didn't say anything. Arguing with her always felt like talking into a void. Nothing ever came back. The letter confirmed what she'd said. There would be a formal reading of the will, and I was invited. My eyes lingered on one line, "You have been named among the interested parties." I set the letter beside my coffee. The steam rose quietly, blurring the words. I could already hear Dad in my head. "Don't go embarrassing yourself chasing something that was never yours." They never said it to hurt me, but sometimes not believing in someone hurts worse than being cruel. I was never the golden child. That was always Selena. And yet, I kept thinking of Grandpa's porch, how he once handed me a dusty old book and said, "The ones who sit with you in silence, those are the ones who stay." This wasn't about money. It never was. I didn't expect anything. Still, I folded the letter and tucked it into my coat pocket. I circled the date on my calendar. Maybe I didn't matter to them, but I was still going to show up. When we were younger, it felt like Selena's name was carved into every wall in the house. Selena got first chair. Selena's teacher says she's gifted. Selena aced her audition. She was always shining, always praised, and I lived in the quiet spaces between. I didn't hate her for it. I just learned to disappear. While she posed for photos, I found corners to hide in, back steps with a book, the garage with Grandpa's old puzzles. Once, Mom caught me reading during dinner and snapped, "Why don't you try joining the world for once?" I did try. It never worked. I wasn't loud or brilliant or Selena enough. Only Grandpa never asked me to be anyone else. He'd hand me little things, a compass, a cracked globe, a hiking map, and say, "See where this takes you." I never forgot that. The last time I saw him, it was early October. I brought him a tin of fancy tea. He didn't ask what I wanted, just made us both a cup. We sat on his porch while the wind tossed leaves across the yard. No talking, just peace. As I left, he held my hand and said, "You always show up without needing to be seen. That's rare." It stuck with me, not because it was praise, but because it felt like permission. Permission to keep being exactly who I was. Now, as I laid out a simple black dress and packed my worn coat, I didn't feel important. I didn't feel like someone anyone would remember, but something deeper stirred in me. Not pride, not hope, just a quiet pull to be there. Not for them. For him. The chapel sat on a hill, its stone walls slick with morning frost. I got there just before the service started. My coat still smelled faintly of cedar from the closet. Selena was already inside, dressed in sleek black silk, surrounded by people. She looked more like the widow than the granddaughter. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and chose not to. I walked up to the usher and said, "I'm here for Grayson Reyes." He paused too long, then pointed off to the side, "You can sit there." Most of the pews were filled with familiar faces, neighbors, relatives, people from Grandpa's firm. My parents sat in the second row. Selena leaned toward Mom, who whispered something in her ear. I slipped into a seat in the back, alone. Behind me, someone murmured, "Why is she here?" Another voice answered, "I thought she cut ties years ago." I didn't react. I was used to whispers like that. They slid past me like cold wind. At the front of the chapel sat a small, dark urn, so plain, so unlike Grandpa. Beside it was a photo of him in work gloves, smiling outside the old cabin. That was the man I remembered. They played a hymn I didn't know. The pastor spoke of faith and legacy, but I just kept looking at the photo. I thought about the porch, the tea, the silence, and how sometimes, the quiet moments are the ones that matter most. Grief is strange like that. Selena walked in like the room belonged to her, coat over her arm, clutch swinging from her wrist. "This is just formality," she said loudly enough for me to hear. Grandpa knew who deserved what. Our parents took their seats beside her. Mom wore her courtroom face, tight-lipped, proud, pretending not to be performing. I sat alone by the window, away from them. Mr. Thorn entered with a file under his arm. He gave a quiet nod to the room before sitting. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I'll begin with the official reading of Grayson Reyes's will." dated June 12 of last year. Selina crossed her legs, chin high, like she'd rehearsed for this moment. To my granddaughter, Ireina Reyes, Mr. Thorn Red, I leave the Aspen Chalet, all furnishings, and $300,000, to be dispersed within 60 days of probate. Selina smiled, confident, not surprised. She looked at our parents. They both nodded like she'd done exactly what they expected of her. Mr. Thorn turned the page. The air shifted, just slightly, like the room paused to listen. Selina's smirk didn't fade. My mother still wouldn't look at me. I folded my hands and waited. Mr. Thorn cleared his throat, and now, to Ireina Reyes. My name landed like dust, soft, quiet, impossible to ignore. My heart jumped, but I didn't move. To my granddaughter, Ireina Reyes, he read, I leave controlling interest in Reyes development, along with $53.5 million in personal and investment assets. The room went still, the words hovered, waiting for someone to believe them. Selina blinked. What? She asked, stunned. My mother made a choking sound. My father leaned back, like he'd been hit. No one looked at me. Mr. Thorn kept going, calm and precise. This includes 62% ownership of all corporate entities, board voting authority, and full discretion over leadership and assets. Selina stood, her chair scraping loudly. There has to be some mistake. There's no mistake, Thorn replied. Your grandfather updated his will in person. It was witnessed, notarized, and fully valid. I still hadn't moved, my pulse hammered in my chest. He never said anything, Selina said sharply. He didn't even like her. He barely mentioned her. Thorn closed the file. He left a brief note for the family. He read it without legal tone, just truth. She was the only one who showed up without a camera. Silence followed, heavier than before, not awkward, not confused, just clear. Selina looked stunned, not angry, yet, just lost. Mom's mouth was slightly open, caught somewhere between disbelief and insult. Dad looked at me, really looked, for the first time in years. His eyes didn't soften, but they stayed. I wasn't thinking about the money, or the company, or control. I was thinking about Grandpa's porch, the quiet, the tea, that book in my lap, that Sunday no one else knew about, because I never needed them to. This isn't fair, Selina finally said. I met her eyes, calm. It wasn't meant to be. Thorn stood. There's one more item, a personal letter addressed to you, Ireina. He handed it to me. I recognized the handwriting instantly. I didn't open it there. I waited. Back in the motel that night, heat humming from the wall unit, I sat on the edge of the bed. The curtains didn't close all the way. The letter rested in my lap. I turned it over, traced the curve of the capital I, and broke the seal. 3 pages, no date, no greeting, just, Ireina. You never asked for anything, but you gave me something none of them could, time, without agenda. I watched you grow up in the quiet corners of a house too loud to hear you. They measured love in applause. You measured it in presence. That Sunday you came, no speech, no performance, just tea, and time. No one else knew. You never told them. That told me everything. I paused, my breath caught, the air felt thinner, like he was here again, just watching, asking nothing. I changed my will the next week, not out of spite. I love Selina too, in my way. But she only stayed when the cameras were on. She memorized the parts of my life worth quoting, but never sat still long enough to know what they meant. You once asked why I kept all those maps and journals. You didn't laugh when I said I liked knowing where things had been, so I could better guess where they were going. I smiled. He had said that. I remembered thinking how rare it was for someone so practical to still believe in direction without guarantees. I don't care what you do with the company, keep it, sell it, change its name. What I'm leaving you isn't concrete. It's trust. Trust that someone who shows up quietly, without needing to be seen, is exactly the kind of person who should hold the light, when everyone else forgets where the switch is. The final sentence was slower, the handwriting wide and a little unsteady. They'll tell you that you don't deserve it. But I've seen what the world rewards. And I've seen what it forgets. I'm choosing to remember you. Love. Grandpa. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope, then tucked it under my pillow. It wasn't validation. It was something quieter. Recognition, solid as ground underfoot, after years spent walking on glass. I returned to the office the next morning. Mr. Thorn had asked me to come alone. They were already there, my parents and Selena, stiff in the waiting room like they were posing for a portrait they never agreed to. Selena stood as soon as she saw me. "You manipulated him," she said, cold and composed, like she'd practiced the line in a mirror. "He was old, he didn't know what he was doing." I didn't answer right away, I just looked at her. Makeup, flawless. Blouse, pressed. Grief, flattened into outrage. "I didn't need to prove anything," I said, "I just loved him." Her face twisted. "Don't you dare make this about love. He was my grandfather too." I nodded. "Then you must have known he didn't care for cameras." My mother flinched. My father looked down. "Mr." Thorn stepped forward, calm as ever. "Mr. Reyes underwent 2 independent mental evaluations before updating his will. Both confirmed full competency. His instructions were deliberate." "That doesn't make it right," Selena snapped. "No," I said, "it just means it was his choice." My mother started to cry, not loudly, just quietly. She turned her face away. My father rested a hand on her shoulder. "She didn't take it." Selena gathered her things with sharp, angry grace. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice had lost its center. "You don't get to rewrite the family just because he's gone." I didn't reply, there was nothing left to say. She walked out, heels echoing hard against the tile. "Mr. Thorn gave me a quiet nod. Just a few signatures." I followed him into the office. The letter was still tucked against my chest. I hadn't let go of it since the night before. The drive to the cabin took just under 2 hours. Snow flurried along the road, soft and aimless, the kind that whispers winter is coming, but not yet. It had been over a decade since I'd been here. Still, I remembered every turn. The tall trees. The sagging mailbox. The gravel crunch beneath the tires. The key still worked. Inside, it was just as he'd left it. The pine table, the threadbare blanket draped over the armchair, the bookshelf that always leaned left. Dust had settled, but nothing felt abandoned. Then I saw it. A single photo on the mantel, me, maybe 10 years old, cross-legged on the porch, a book in my lap, leaning against Grandpa's knee, his hand rested lightly on my shoulder. We were both looking at the page. I never knew that photo existed. Next to it was a small leather-bound journal. I picked it up and opened the cover. His handwriting curved across the page. Ireina was never loud. That's how I knew I could trust her. The breath left my chest, slow and deep, like something I'd been holding for years had finally let go. I sat down in the old armchair, the journal in my lap. The silence wasn't empty, it felt full. After a while, I added logs to the fireplace and struck a match. The flame caught, slow and steady. I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation, not anymore. The room warmed. The edges softened. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt the weight of what I'd inherited. Not as a burden, but as a beginning.